Democrats are stepping on their own message. We're going to bring you the tape. But first, Trump's successes in black and white. That's the focus of tonight's angle. Now, this was a scene you likely did not see on one of your local or national newscasts. The White House announcing a bold plan to change the lives in America of some of our poorest citizens, those who live in the most distressed and sometimes the most dangerous neighborhoods. Flanked by Senator Tim Scott and BET founder Bob Johnson, with Van Jones looking on, you see him there, the president signed an executive order creating something called the Opportunity and Revitalization Council. Now, if you think this is just kind of another brick in the bureaucracy here in D.C., signifying nothing, think again. Led by HUD Secretary Ben Carson, it will coordinate efforts across the entire federal government to deliver jobs, investment, and growth in underprivileged areas. By the way, it includes rural areas too. Now, this means more private sector money will flow into some of these high-risk areas or low development areas. And what will that do? In turn, that will deliver jobs.
This is a great point. Thank you.
Mr. President, in reaction to Michael Cohen's thing, is Michael Cohen
Of course, you heard that. The few reporters were actually on hand there. They weren't interested in the substance of this undertaking. All they were interested in is shouting questions out about Cohen. And unlike most White House events starring Trump, it was not broadcast on cable or on C-SPAN or any of the networks. I wonder why. I'll tell you why. Because Trump is delivering results for those who Democrats thought that they had forever co-opted politically. It's all kind of, it all smashes the press's relentless drumbeat about how the president just doesn't like black people.
What more do we need to see or hear from this racist man? Here we have a president who has once again said racist and despicable words about African Americans, people of color.
All the policy that he's put forward has been anti-people of color. He has continued policies that I believe are racist in nature.
The President of the United States is racist. All of us already knew that.
The president seems to harbor racist feelings about people of color.
It's just despicable. Every time I watch those, I'm like, I don't even want to play them anymore. Media mogul Bob Johnson, one of the most prominent and most successful African Americans probably on the planet, obviously begged to disagree with that montage. He was on hand to recognize the administration's drive and commitment to help low-income Americans.
Just recently, your Department of Labor signed a historic document that created something called auto portability. Auto portability is designed to reduce retirement leakage among low-income 401k account holders who tend to cash out. And Mr. President, you should know this, 60% of African American and Hispanic Americans cash out of their 401k account. This program will put close to $800 billion back in the retirement pockets of minority Americans. So I just want to applaud you for that.
Okay, no coverage. I had to play that just because no one saw it. Now, you see, there are a lot of politicians out there, though, who traffic in bromides, shining with the veneer of real compassion.
Hope is the insistence that no matter how tough our circumstances, there are better days ahead. If we persist, despite all of our individual failings and all of our inadequacies, together we can overcome.
Oh, that's nice. I guess that's Nobel Prize material. But the problem is, talking about hope, it's beautiful, but it won't bring business into your community. People who can get jobs tend to have more hope. Despair and crime in places like Chicago and Baltimore spiraled out of control during much of Obama's 8 years. But I know what you're going to say. But Laura, Obama and the Democrats care more than Donald Trump. Look, you can see it. You can feel it. They care. Then they're going to bring up Charlottesville and the S-hole comment that Trump made to then drive their points home. Okay, even if for the sake of argument, I concede those points. Maybe the tonality, the wording, maybe wouldn't have done that way, fine. But I ask the following. Who cares more about America, and particularly the working poor? The guy who delivers results, record low unemployment, opportunity zones, and decent chance for criminal justice reform? Or a party that is all talk and no action? I'll take the former any day. Oh, and by the way, the press did find one angle on the opportunity zone that they thought this part of the story was worth covering. Jared and Trump himself are only pushing these inner-city investment incentives because they'll make money off their own real estate holdings. Please. Secretary Ben Carson came on my radio show yesterday, and he swatted this whole thing away.
The zones were picked by the governors. They were not picked by Jared Kushner. There are all kinds of people in the country who already have real estate in those zones. Will they benefit? Probably. Why shouldn't they benefit? Why shouldn't everybody benefit? You know, why shouldn't we create win-win situations?
I want to see more of Ben Carson out there, by the way. I loved what he had to say. And once again, the media proves itself to be absolutely incapable of covering virtually anything about the work the president does to try to restore our country. Not even an inkling of objectivity. And he didn't do this, by the way, to benefit just a few of his pals or the people who voted for him, but he's doing this to try to benefit those who have been served so poorly by politicians of both parties for decades. But I'm telling you, despite everything that's swirling around him, the Democrats' obsession with impeachment, the indictments, et cetera, the president continues to do work that other presidents wouldn't do. And poor, working-class Americans will be better for it. And that's the angle. Joining me now with reaction, Pastor Darrell Scott. He was at the signing of the Opportunity Zone's executive order and is also the CEO of the National Diversity Coalition for Trump. And with me is Niger Innis from the Congress for Racial Equality and Chris Edwards from the Cato Institute. Great to have you all here tonight. Pastor, you were at this event yesterday. Now, what's your reaction to some of that sound you heard from my angle that President Trump not only doesn't care about minorities, he doesn't deliver anything for minorities, but that he is an actual racist, despite everything that's been laid out?
Well, I can sum all of that up in one word, and that word is hogwash. I can think of a stronger word, but I can't say it on television. But listen, I've been involved in this with the president and with this administration as far as this Opportunity Zone Act and urban revitalization plans for long over a year and a half. It's something that they've been working very, very hard on. And yesterday saw the fruition of a lot of planning and a lot of time and labor intensive activity working towards this. And it's going to enhance this entire country. It's going to cause developers and builders, is going to provide incentive for them to redevelop and revitalize these blighted areas in America, and it's going to be a shining symbol of Trump's vision for making America great again.
But Chris Edwards from the Cato Institute disagrees. Chris, you think this is going to be just a big boondoggle for the developers and the business folks, not going to trickle down at all to the people?
I think it's a very well-meaning proposal or law now, and it's a big thing. There's no doubt about it. I think it's very misguided. What these are, there's 8,000 zones across the country now. Politicians across the country sat down at maps and literally drew lines down streets in America. On one side of the street, you get this giant capital gains tax break. On the other side of the street, you don't get anything. So what has happened is immediately landowners, and Ben Carson touched on this, landowners inside the zone immediately had these giant appreciations in the value of their property for doing nothing. That's just how economics works. On the other side,
yeah, but how do people across the board not benefit, though? Of course, there's always going to be...
Because people left right outside the zones are losers.
Okay,
New
right.
investment won't go outside the zones. New investment will go inside the zone. So it creates inequality between
you're loud.
Americans.
You're loud. I love your voice, but it's very booming. Okay,
he doesn't know what he's talking about.
Well, okay,
he doesn't know what he's talking about, Laura.
Okay,
he doesn't know what he's talking about.
All right, I want to get Niger respond, then you can respond, then I have something to say about how the zones actually work. Niger.
Yeah, look, it was just a few short years ago during the Obama administration that you had record number of blacks and Hispanics a part of a growing dependency society. Even working class whites, you know, for the first time, health indicators for white men, working class white men, was catching up negatively to those of black and Hispanic men because there was a sense of hopelessness, a sense of eternal dependency on big government. That has changed. Small businesses, for the first time in our history, more small businesses were closing than opening. What the president is doing with these opportunity zones, and I want to applaud my friend Pastor Scott, I want to applaud the president. What they're doing is they're making a bet and investment not on big government, but on capitalism. And I think my friend from Cato would agree that capitalism has done more to free and liberate people from poverty, not just in our country, but around the world than any other system in history.
I would say this, what's the alternative here? Yeah, what's the alternative? We spent, what, $7 trillion on the war on poverty? We got more poverty. We got to spend a lot of money in the war on poverty. Correct, Pastor, if I'm wrong. I think it's about that. Cato has the figures. I think it's about $7 trillion. So what's the alternative? What is Cato? Last time I checked, Cato is for open borders, more trade deals than the TPP, correct?
We're for trade, and I agree with everything the other guests mentioned about capitalism. I'm all for opportunity everywhere in the country and equal treatment. These zones only touch about 1/4 of low-income neighborhoods in America. So the 3/4 of the neighborhoods left out of these zones are going to be losers because the investment's all going to go to these winning zones. Trump's new council that he announced yesterday or today is going to put more spending subsidies just in these zones, leaving out the other areas. So I like equal treatment, especially at the federal level, not special deals for special groups of people.
So do you think Donald Trump, hold on, do you think Donald Trump concocted this whole thing to benefit his son-in-law?
It's a very well-meaning thing.
Okay, I mean, so you're not part of that crowd.
No, absolutely. I mean, Mr. Kushner does sound like he owns some of the land in opportunity zones, coincidentally.
I bet a lot of the donors to Cato own a lot of that land, too. That's my guess.
Could well be, and they've all experienced a big capital appreciation for doing nothing, actually, and for not investing.
Well, I don't think it's doing nothing. I think you're taking a risk, Pastor. You're taking a risk by putting investment in an area that has oftentimes been dangerous, very difficult to grow a company, or in the rural zones, just kind of desolate, and no investment at all.
First of all, I think you're giving the Cato hater too much time because he's promoting negativism and not wanting to talk about the positive attributes of this. First of all, when you elevate the value of these depressed areas, the areas adjacent to the depressed areas automatically elevate their value as well. Real estate 101 is when you look at property value, you look at the comparables, and that's how you determine the value. So if an area is depressed, it's bringing down the value of the surrounding areas. If that area increases in value, the areas around it automatically increase as well. He's trying to level the playing field and provide incentives for those to invest in areas that they previously would not have invested in.
I want
we have our very aggressive urban revitalization program. It's not going to simply be investing in real estate and property. It's going to be investing in the people in those areas today, providing vocational training, educational opportunities. There's going to be a lot to it to revitalize the people. They can be transformed by the renewing of their mind so that the increase in value is total, not just physical.
I want to move to something, guys. I want to move to something that's it goes beyond just the economics of this, to how the left has tried to poison the well among minorities against this president. Despite the economic news, despite initiatives like this, Niger, criminal justice reform, which is coming down the pike.
That's right.
And this just 24 hours before this council that Cato Institute thinks is not going to work, and I certainly hope they're wrong. And I'm actually very optimistic about this, very optimistic about it. But Niger, 24 hours before this is what we were seeing on CNN. Let's watch.
Wes,
Do you think the president takes hate and white nationalism seriously?
He has very often employed language that mirrors their own language. That, you know, there's that line that Andrew Gillum used back in the Florida race about his then opponent, where he said, "I'm not saying you're a racist, but the racists think you're a racist."
It's every day the same thing to this whole panel. We're actually debating whether this will work substantively, and maybe America doesn't want to hear that. I don't know, maybe they just want to hear people yell all day. I think it's interesting that Cato has a point of view about the economics of this. I like to hear from what the folks at Cato have to say, or the Chamber of Commerce. It's interesting. They're not offering a solution for the inner city. They're offering the following: Trump's a racist. That's all they'll say. Or a white nationalist. That's it. That's what they're offering Black America in the era of Trump. That Trump's a racist. That's it. Niger, I got to tell you, it's infuriating to people who've seen the good work that they're doing or trying to do.
Well, certainly the far left wing will do that on a regular basis because they have nothing to offer. Our friends at Cato probably have a substantive policy disagreement with the president on this, right or wrong. But they don't. I doubt that Chris is going to get into that racial demagoguery. But the reason the far left wing does that is because they have controlled inner city America for 50 years or longer, and they have delivered nothing for the Black community, nothing for the Hispanic community. Nothing for working class poor whites for years. So what do? Every 2 years or every 4 years or every 3 years for local election, they will drag out the racism card, which is nonsense, and say that, well, you got to keep me in power. Maxine Waters has been in power for decades in Los Angeles. And what has she delivered for her community other than saying that that guy over there or that woman over there, if they're Republican and they're white, they're racist? It's nonsense, and the Black community, Hispanic community is tired of it. And what they are afraid of on the far left is not that these opportunity zones are going to be a failure, but that they're going to be a success.
Well, I have a question. Why is the president's popularity among African Americans, it was at 36 in August, according to one poll. Now it's back down below 20. Why is that? Why is it going in the wrong direction, Pastor? I mean, we know Kanye West kind of came and went, and we don't have enough Pastor Burns and Niger Innes's out there.
It's going to go back, especially after this and the prison reform bill. You know, one thing I agree with my brother Niger, you know what it's insulting to the intelligence of Black America is the fact that the left does not give us one intellectual reason to not vote for President Trump or to not support him. They give us emotional reasons. He hates you. He hates blacks. Don't vote for him. He hates blacks. Well, he's creating opportunity zones, but he hates you. Well, he's into prison reform, but he hates you. And they're insulting our intelligence by speaking to us like that when the proof is in the pudding. This man, and I said it, he could be the most proactive president for Black America in my lifetime, and he's proving me to be a prophet in that respect. He's doing things. If President Obama had done this, there'd be a parade down the street right now. Obama, he's the savior of the Black community. His prison reform. Obama, and so, you know, you get these guys like Cato and them, they're going to find some reason to say something bad.
Okay, well, but was Cato also against prison reform, or are you for that?
No, we're absolutely for it.
Okay.
I'm for lower taxes on investment. I'm for equal treatment, though. We should have lower taxes on investment across the board. The reason why cities like Detroit are poor is because of bad policy, high regulations. Detroit has some of the highest property taxes in the nation. If Detroit lowered its property taxes, it would get more business investment. You don't need the federal government for that.
All right, great panel, guys. Thanks so much. And actual substance discussed. All right, liberals are always talking about safe spaces. Now, some left-wing judges want to provide them to dangerous illegal immigrants who are walking out of the courthouse. I'm going to explain all this next, plus Melania called the media opportunists out, and wouldn't you know, they proved her right. Howie Kurtz is here to tell us how. Stay there.
Our dad was in the hospital.
Because of smoking?
It still had to have a cigarette.
Had to.
Do you know how hard it is to smoke at a hospital? By the time we could, we were like,
what are we doing?
It was time for Nicoderm CQ.
The Nicoderm CQ patch with unique extended release technology helps prevent your urge to smoke all day and doubles your chances of quitting. Nicoderm CQ. You know why, we know how.
Over 235,000 aliens with criminal records including those charged or convicted of more than 100,000 assaults and nearly 4,000 killings. Think of that. 4,000 killings, and they want to abolish ICE. No, thank you.
Now, remember over the summer when the Democrats wanted to do just that, what the president said, abolish ICE? Well, now nearly 70 former state and federal judges want ICE banned from courthouses. In a letter to the acting ICE director, they wrote, "Judges simply cannot do their jobs, and our justice system cannot function effectively if victims, defendants, witnesses, and family members do not feel secure in accessing the courthouse." Well, the group wants courthouses to be added to the so-called sensitive locations list, where immigration officers generally do not enter to make arrests. Here now, former Assistant U.S. Attorney Brian Kelly, who prosecuted immigration cases in the border county of San Diego, Eileen Blessinger, is also with us, an immigration attorney. Brian, let me start with you. How bad of an idea is this to ban ICE from operating outside of a courtroom where a lot of these detainees, who are obviously illegal immigrants, are released or coming and going as part of another case?
Well, it's a terrible idea, Laura, and it's obviously political. This is not a new practice. These arrests at courthouses, they're not very common, but they've been going on since the Obama administration. And I don't recall any of these judges complaining when it was happening under the Obama administration.
Well, one of the things that that ICE said to us tonight, and Eileen, I want you to react to this. They wrote the following to us, so they gave a statement. Arrests in courthouses are routine practice for law enforcement agencies throughout the country because many jurisdictions no longer allow ICE to take custody of aliens inside of jails. Courthouses are the next safest option. As the judges acknowledge in their letter, ICE updated its courthouse policy in coordination with the Association of Chief Justices and Court Administrators to clarify that the agency targets specific aliens, appearing most often as a defendant in criminal matters and not those appearing in court as victims or witnesses. Isn't that the case, that this is being thrown out in a very emotional manner, again, to try to paint the Trump administration as, well, you're going after like victims of domestic violence in a courthouse? That's really not the case.
It may not be that they're specifically targeting the victims, but the impact is the same, the effect is the same. If people are hearing that they're going after illegal immigrants within the court system, then the actual witnesses, the victims, they all think that they're even play, even if that's not what's happening in practice.
Well, there is a updated policy that came out. Also, there's also something called I can't remember the name of the visa, but it's a visa for victims of crime. Correct, Brian, that you can apply for if you are a victim. And if these courthouses, these judges, or these lawyers for the illegal immigrants aren't aware of this when their clients are going into the courthouse, I just don't know what to say about that. I mean, they are here in the country illegally. We all forget that.
It's never been the case that illegal aliens were eager to hang out at federal and state courthouses, right? The policy now in place that ICE is implementing targets only certain criminal aliens, members of gangs, national security risks, that sort of thing. They're not just arresting willy-nilly crime victims and things like that. They are, in fact, trying to do their job, and this opposition to them at every turn is making a dangerous job even harder. It's much safer for them to maybe making arrests in a courthouse than out in the streets where anything can happen.
Well, people get killed, including the agents. I mean, we do have to preserve, their safety as well. I got to say, a lot of the reason, and we heard this from ICE tonight as well, they're doing this, Eileen, because there are sanctuary cities and jurisdictions that do not allow them to go into jails to assess the conditions, the status of particular inmates, nor are they alerted to the fact that certain inmates are released. We just had a case in New Jersey in early November where an individual, it was released, and then goes on to murder 3 people in Missouri from New Jersey, which is a sanctuary state. So ICE is trying to keep us safe out there, and I don't understand for the life of me why people who claim to care about women and children, a lot of Democrats, are in the middle of this defending criminals from being detained by or caught up by ICE. That's going to protect women and children in the United States and men.
Well, I mean, I think the important thing here is that the ICE officers are trying to protect them, but so are the police officers that are making the cases against these defendants. If the victims don't feel safe going to court, then all of the work that the police officers, the prosecutors have done have fallen apart. When we talk about the U visas, a lot of times the prosecutors don't feel comfortable telling the witnesses about that, the existence of a U visa, for fear of it becoming bias later when they're testifying and used against them.
Well, look,
I think people,
look,
hold
they're
on
not
a second,
targeting.
Brian. They're not targeting these people. This is a complete red herring. They are not targeting women or children or people who have been brutalized. That's just not how it works. And just so people understand this case I referenced, Luis Rodrigo Perez. Okay, we had a photo. Put it up on the screen, please. 23 years old, charged with killing 3 people in Missouri, and should have faced deportation proceedings after he was arrested last year in New Jersey for domestic violence. Instead, New Jersey released him, and now we got 3 people dead. Okay, that's one. We have Juan Ramon Vasquez, another individual previously deported from Honduras who raped a child after Philadelphia authorities ignored an ICE detainer. Isn't that lovely?
That's right. That's right,
and it goes on and on and on. And I put this at the feet of the Open Borders crowd, who cares more about the rights of illegal immigrants than the safety of the American people. It's not fear-mongering. These are real lives that have been affected. Brian.
That's right, and it makes no sense to treat this particular crime different from any others. For instance, if it was an American citizen who was a defendant in, say, a tax case, and there's an IRS agent in the courtroom, no one would complain about that. Or if there's an FBI agent in the courtroom with a warrant on something, no one would complain.
This is a special crime, special status, special protection. Illegal immigrants, you can't ever deport them, according to most people on the left today. If you really twisted their arm, they say, oh, I guess most murderers should be deported, but a lot of the other crimes, they should be able to stay here and live out their lives. All right, panel, fantastic job as always. Now, last night, First Lady Melania Trump spoke with Fox's own Sean Hannity, and she didn't hold back when she was talking about the media.
What's been the hardest thing that you have to deal with?
I would say the opportunists who are using my name or my family name to advance themselves, from comedians to journalists to performers, book writers.
Does it hurt?
It doesn't hurt. The problem is they're writing the history, and it's not correct.
Apparently offended by the truth, CNN proved the First Lady's point less than 24 hours later.
The First Lady's poll numbers plummet, with her favorable rating falling by double digits. And in a new interview, she calls the hardest part of her job opportunists who use her name, including journalists.
Joining me now, Howie Kurtz, host of Fox News' Media Buzz. Howie, I found the Wolf Blitzer little intro there interesting. I don't recall their constant monitoring of other First Ladies' numbers. I mean, maybe Hillary when she was doing Hillary Care back in the early 90s. But that seemed kind of to prove Melania's point.
Well, I'm less upset at reporting the polls showing her numbers are down. More people still like her.
Is she a political figure?
I guess all First Ladies are by definition, but Melania is subjected to a particularly brutal kind of treatment and mockery, whether it's Jimmy Kimmel making fun of her accent, to all this media chatter about, well, why didn't she go on this trip with her husband, and did she swat his hand away?
Is she even living at the White House? Remember that? She's not even living there?
All of which designed to insinuate, imply, intimate that marriage is horrible.
Free Melania, the bumper stickers.
Right,
yeah, that's
and
sweet.
You know, she's got a thick skin, but no other modern First Lady has been treated like that.
Maria Cardone over at CNN actually said this. Let's watch.
She has now adopted this woe is me attitude, and she said that she believes she is the most bullied person that is out there. And they don't believe that she has done everything that she can to focus on what's positive out of this huge negative administration.
No, what's negative? The press, the administration? I mean, who adds to the negativity here?
Look, when Melania does things in her public role as First Lady, she's subject to criticism. I think we can agree on that. But, you know, she's a pretty private person. She devotes a lot of time to being a mom. And I'm just continually stunned. I mean, any other First Lady, she's a former professional model, would be on the covers of women's magazines. But, of course, she's not for ideological reasons, and that bothers me. But I do think, you know, she should do more interviews because she's actually very good at it.
I think she should do more. I
She
think
leaves a vacuum.
I don't want to jump on the criticism, but I'm not criticizing. I'm criticizing because we want to see more of her.
Right.
And she's an incredibly gracious, warm, kind person, and I think people, they don't know her, and so they'll jump to thinking something.
There's an air of mystery about it.
Maybe that's it. And again, Michelle Obama could do no wrong. I mean, no matter what Michelle did, no matter it was a school lunches being thrown away. Oh, but they must not have been very. It's okay. She's beautiful. I mean, so it's fine. But I just think.
I think there's some underlying resentment in the media that she doesn't do more public things because we want her as fodder.
No,
but you know what? It's up to her how much she wants to do publicly and how much she wants to stay behind.
Yeah. Well, I don't think she'll be talking to Larry O'Donnell anytime soon. Here's his tweet. The only thing you need to know about Melania is she's a Trump. A Trump by choice.
Captures the entire media mindset.
It's despicable. And it's not kind, and it's not nice, and it's just plain rude. For all their commentary that Trump is rude, and Trump can get a little hot on Twitter. We all can.
Sure.
But he could back off the Twitter a little bit and probably be better for him. But to say that about the First Lady, I thought we were all for women choosing whatever they want to do. Love who you want. Love is love. What happened to that? What happened to that? Love is love. You always hear that. But when someone chooses to love someone they don't like, then they're a horrible person.
It's a woman who's not consumed by political ambition, and yet that kind of, well, she's married to him, so she must be a terrible person. That's really pretty awful.
Anyone associated with Trump, by extension, for the left, is a terrible, are terrible people. Howie Kurtz, thank you so much. Great to see you. And how does Stephen Miller react to the suggestion that the White House let a proposal for the wall slip through its fingertips? The senior policy advisor to President Trump, here to tell us why those criticisms are wrong, and some breaking news on the Chief of Staff search.
Canuts and a sickle.
29.
Sickles and a galleon.
17.
Hermione's wand.
Vinewood. 10 3/4.
Okay, Ron's favorite quidditch.
Chili cannons.
He's good.
Nobody knows the wizarding world like we do. Barnes & Noble.
You want me to investigate flying saucers. You to help me prove to the public the truth. They don't exist.
Get away from the car!
Once we discover something, I might get us both killed.
Because the best thing you can give your family on
Believe in see this is gonna be
warm. Well, the knit on the outside
that would have funded the wall and provided a path to citizenship for DACA recipients, calling it a catastrophe and a giant amnesty. The bill failed, and the wall, well, still not built. Joining me now is Stephen Miller, Senior Policy Advisor to President Trump. Stephen, does the president feel like this is like the sand in the hourglass that slipped through that little tiny hole?
Not at all. First of all, the bill that you mentioned in the lead-in would have, in fact, been a total catastrophe and gutted interior enforcement permanently forever. We've already built or have underway over 100 miles of the wall, and this stand that we're taking right now with the entire nation watching, frankly the whole world watching, is a stand that we think we're going to win.
The fact checkers say your border wall claim, the president said a lot of it is already built, was not true.
Well, the fact checkers typically are wrong about these things, and they certainly are in this case.
So is there like the new wall, like the
there's
super
beautiful
new wall?
There's beautiful 30-foot rock solid bollard steel in the ground. You can go down and look at it.
But is it up high and it's going up high?
30 feet tall.
Well,
so unlike the old, well, you have it in El Centro, for example, you have it in the San Diego area and in Calexico and many other areas too. Okay. But that 30-foot barrier.
I'm going there. I'm going to go just do a show from the wall. Yeah. Maybe I'll sit on the wall.
Because you see the old shorter barrier that predated this administration. You see people climbing over it and throwing human beings over it. You need that 30-foot height. But I just want to get to the real issue at hand. The Democrats are fighting for illegal aliens. Donald Trump is fighting for American citizens. That's what this whole thing's about. You've covered this better than probably anybody for years. You understand this is about sovereignty. It's about working men and women. It's about safe communities. It's about wages, living conditions, quality of life. This is the battle right now, right before our very eyes. We are going to win because Donald Trump is not backing down.
Jeff Flake, outgoing. Well, you'd be surprised to know, Stephen, he disagrees with you. Let's watch.
The notion that Democrats have prevented any fix. The last real vote we had on substantial immigration reform was the bipartisan bill that we did in 2013. Every Democrat in the Senate voted for that bill. This notion that this is all the Democrats' fault is just wrong.
Is that true? I mean, do Republicans deserve some blame here? I mean, we have a lot of Chamber of Commerce type Republicans. I just had a guy from Cato on. He's a nice guy, but they don't want any border. They don't want any enforcement down there. They want the cheap labor. They want a glut of workers so the wages stay down. Now we have a dearth of blue-collar workers and wages are going up.
Well, look, if you zoom out, right, 30,000-foot view, last few decades of American history, there's no question that both parties in America have contributed to unwise foreign policy, unwise trade policy, and unwise immigration policy. Donald Trump came into office and has turned that all around, getting tough on China on trade, renegotiating NAFTA, cracking down on illegal immigration, dealing with unskilled low-wage migration, reorienting our foreign policy. All of these issues, Laura, that have affected working people in our country for decades, he's turning them around. But the Democrat Party of today, not the Democratic Party of years past, not the Democratic Party of Bill Clinton in the 90s. The Democratic Party of today.
We know that. They're all for it. But how are you going to get the wall built? How are you guys going to get? He campaigned on the wall. Mexico's going to pay for it. Mexico's not going to pay for it. Unless you're going to tell me something tonight that I don't know. But yeah,
just the savings from trade alone will fund it. But I'm actually glad you're bringing up the funding issue, because just the cost of heroin in our country a year is $230 billion. Just the cost of public benefits for illegal immigrants every year is over $100 billion.
We did it last night, $18 billion just for the health care a year for illegal immigrants. That's the pay for most of the wall right there. This is what Chuck Schumer said about the NAFTA payment. Let's watch.
The president repeatedly promised that Mexico would pay for his unnecessary and ineffective border wall. Well, Mr. President, if you say Mexico is going to pay for the wall through NAFTA, which it certainly won't, then I guess we don't have to.
So?
First of all, Chuck Schumer was for the wall when he voted for the Secure Fence Act in 2006, and now that his Democrat Party has become the party of open borders and Donald Trump is president, he's against it. Secondly, if Chuck Schumer wants to pass legislation saying that we can spend all of our trade savings on border security, that'd be great. In the meantime, the savings from the trade deal will offset the cost of the wall, and more importantly than all of that, the wall is going to save American lives, it's going to save American jobs, and it's going to save in the long term hundreds of billions of dollars.
Yeah, you need the asylum reform. You've written about this in the past. I've certainly written about it. Without that reform, for people who cross the border with a child or someone who they say is a child, it's not a child, then they're still being released, are they not? They're still being released. You can't detain and house everybody because there are too many people. So they are effectively being released by the Trump administration now because we don't have reforms in place. How do we do that with the Democrat House?
This is going to be one of the defining issues of the next 2 years heading into 2020. And the Democratic Party follows the path of open borders, then the Democratic Party is going to engage in self-immolation. Donald Trump is fighting for working people, and he's fighting to restore the borders around this country that are the essential ingredient for national sovereignty and national success in a way that nobody has who's held that office, not only in my lifetime, but frankly, in the history of this country.
Do you feel like you can go out in public in restaurants in Washington? Do you?
I have no concerns.
You don't? So you eat, you're fine, you're not. Was that Broadway show going on outside your house yesterday? There was some, do we have a video of it? Raymond said it was, who was it looking like, Raymond? It was some kind, well, it was like, was it La Cage aux Folles, or was it, I don't know, who was paying these people? This was just, and you weren't even there. I mean, but you don't have walls, do you, outside your house, really? I mean, there's no. Those are the tech people that have walls outside.
Ironically, they'd have a better chance of getting jobs if we could implement some of our immigration reforms that we've been talking about.
Very, very, very fun. Okay, what's going on with the chief of staff search? Everybody's saying it's a nightmare. I mean, I've heard this endlessly. It's a nightmare in the White House. The spirit is bad. Everyone's depressed. They said that a year ago. They said that almost 2 years ago. Number one, what is the spirit in the White House?
The spirit is wonderful. Not only the wonderful spirit of this sacred Christmas season, but also the wonderful spirit of getting to work for a leader who is fighting for everyday, ordinary citizens, just regular families in every part of this country. You did your segment on opportunity zones earlier. African American, Hispanic American, people who don't have powerful lobbies, powerful special interests, who don't have representation in big international organizations or on boards of corporate companies and large multinational businesses. Just everyday people in this country now have a champion in the White House. And getting to work for a president who fights every day for just normal, everyday citizens is a privilege beyond words. And all the people I work with feel the same way.
They're going to focus on the 7-year-old who, this horrific story, migrant girl who died from dehydration after being, brought into the country, or her parent brought her. She died. The left will focus on that as if that's Republicans' fault for our believing in a border. That they play the emotion game, and oftentimes we play the fact game. Facts are very antiseptic. Emotional stories sell the case.
Immigration is an emotional issue, and it ought to be an emotional issue because it affects people's lives. And if you want to stop the horrors on the northward trek, the rape that occurs, the abuse that occurs, the physical assault, and the death that occurs, then for the love of God, fund the border wall.
Stephen, Chris Christie, Chief of Staff, that's what we're hearing tonight. Could be him. Any comments?
I'm not going to make any news on the Chief of Staff announcement, but whoever the President chooses is going to be somebody who shares his vision, who's going to work hard to implement it, and who's going to be a great selection.
Stephen, thanks for being with us. Have a great holiday season. Merry Christmas, whatever the heck you celebrate. All right, thanks for being with us. All right, you've heard the term death by 1,000 cuts. Could the Democrats suffer death by 1,000 candidates? Messaging guru Frank Luntz joins us, goes through the best and, well, the not so good aspirations for 2020 next.
Share the wonder of Christmas at Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's, including a free picture with Santa and big savings. Like Natural Reflections notch neck sweaters for under $15 and Redhead Stonewash canvas shirts starting at only $22.49.
Touch shows how we really feel. But does psoriasis ever get in the way? Embrace the chance of 100%
for President of the United States in 2020.
Oh, are we back? All right, Swalwell, Gabbard, and Castro, are they doing this because they see a path, or a path to vice presidency, speaking fees, a book deal? What the heck are they saying here?
So I hadn't seen that video. The first thing I would tell them is do not announce in front of a brick wall. You are not a comedian. This is not that Comedy Store. That's number one. Yeah. Number two is get the lighting correct.
Okay.
It looked like he was a hostage somewhere.
What was that Castro bite?
He should know better. He's been in politics long enough to know that you don't do that. I think the reason why they want to do it is you can write books. Your speaker fee doubles for at least the first 6 months. And look at that list right there. You can't know. There is no front. There is no front runner there. There are twice as many candidates that may run for the Democrats this time as ran for the Republicans 2 years ago.
All right, now let's move on to another potential battle brewing. This one between Bernie Sanders and Beto O'Rourke. Bernie was asked about his prospects of another run along with his thoughts on Beto. Note the slight dig.
Can a Texas congressman who lost his Senate bid win your party's nomination for president?
Well, I think it's a little bit premature.
When do we get your decision whether you're going to do it again?
Before I decide that I want to run, I got to make sure that there is that grassroots support, and that's what we're ascertaining. If there is, I'll run. If there isn't, I won't.
So, what are your thoughts there?
I think you're missing, to me, the most likely person at this point, which is Elizabeth Warren. I know that may frighten you. I know that may frighten a bunch of viewers.
Oh, dear, it's fine.
I tell them, take a look at her takedown of the CEO of Wells Fargo several years ago. It's a 7-minute video on YouTube. I've never seen a committee chairman tear someone apart. He had no idea that he was done. She's an awesome debater. She's got more grassroots support than Bernie Sanders does. And even though she's Hillary Clinton's age, she's got a lot more energy, and she's willing to mix it up with the...
But Beto won that MoveOn.org poll, which is the true grassroots. They're calling him the white Obama. He's handsome. He moves the stage. He's kind of fun. He's energetic. I guess he's smart.
He's Bobby Kennedy. He looks like Bobby Kennedy.
He does look like it.
And he does the same thing that Kennedy does. He walks onto a basketball court, starts shooting hoops. I think Beto is an absolute front runner, one of the front runners for the Democrats.
And finally, now to Joe Biden, someone who many think is the clear favorite, who now I think is no doubt worried about these young upstarts, Frank. He apparently thinks it doesn't matter who the Democrats put up. Watch.
Can I ask you why you're the most qualified person to take on President Trump?
No one should run for president unless they think they're qualified.
And why do you think you could beat President Trump? Why is this your time?
I think anybody could beat him.
Anybody? Anybody on the Democratic side?
Many of the amazing Democrats could beat him.
I just like the gaffe-o-matic that he is. You just pull the string and a series of gaffes come up. Okay, Biden.
Well, the Democrats want someone who wants to run. I'm not convinced that Joe Biden wants to run. He's got to show that passion, that commitment. It's a wait and see for him.
He's a little old to be running.
So is Bernie Sanders.
So is Sanders.
Bernie Sanders is so old it takes him an hour and a half to watch 60 Minutes.
Oh, I think Sanders is more fun personally than Biden, but Biden is kind of nostalgic candidate. All right, coming up, comedian Jerry Seinfeld weighs in on the Kevin Hart Oscars next.
How did you come into all that money?
Well, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm a high-end gigolo.
Come on.
I've become a drug mule for the cartel. And I've got cocaine sitting right in the back of my truck.
We can get this guy.
Seriously.
Alexa, play the Garth channel on Sirius XM.
Garth plays music like no one else. The Garth channel, only on Sirius XM. Now on Amazon Alexa. Bring us home.
For the aches and pains that stop you in your tracks, Tommy's got your back. Tommy Copper's revolutionary pro-grade shoulder shirt, now available in long sleeve, delivers pain-relieving compression to your shoulders and the muscles along your spine.
The Tommy Copper shoulder shirt has double support panels that bring our shoulders back to a neutral position, which helps to reduce the pain in the lower back, the mid-back, and shoulders.
Visit TommyCopper.com to see all the ways we can help relieve your pain. Go now and save 25%. Tommy's got your back.
Every time I smiled, I had to cover my
bite. Comedian Jerry Seinfeld is speaking out about Kevin Hart being pulled into dropping out of the Oscars.
When you look at that situation, well, who got screwed in that deal? I think Kevin's going to be fine, you know. But find another Kevin Hart? That's not so easy. He's a brilliant guy with a movie career, you know.
Seinfeld has long called out what he sees as a troubling trend of the PC culture creeping into comedy. And a reminder, there has not been a replacement named yet for Hart. Who wants it at this point? It's all the time we have tonight. Shannon Bream, the Fox News at Night team, take it from here. Shannon.
Laura, are you available? I think it's on a weekend, right? Like a Saturday or Sunday?
You'd be much better.
We'll
much
co-host.
better. I'll watch you.
We'll co-host, but I won't wait for them to call either one of us.
Okay.
All right, thanks, Laura.
Have a great show.
Thanks. All right, we begin with the Fox News alert. The White House responding tonight to a new report that the inaugural committee is under a federal investigation. Trace is on the case for us tonight. And was it entrapment sending the FBI to interview former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn, advising him he didn't need a lawyer? And Jim Comey speaking publicly now about getting away with it. Plus, a federal judge drops the hammer on the Mueller team, asking them to turn over everything related to Flynn and raising new questions about what the FBI could be hiding. And the latest threat to the border wall, Congress ditching Washington for nearly a week, coming back with just a couple of days before the deadline to actually fund the government, keep it open. The president says he'll do whatever it takes to get border security, so who blinks first? Hello and welcome to Fox News at Night. I'm Shannon Bream in Washington. Tonight, a judge ordering the Mueller team to cough up scores of documents related to Michael Flynn, and there are stunning new questions tonight about exactly how the FBI went after him. Chief Intelligence Correspondent Catherine Herridge fills us in.
Filed late Wednesday night, the order from federal judge Emmett Sullivan gives special counsel Robert Mueller's team less than 48